It was actor Marlon Brando who said, "Never confuse the size of your paycheck with the size of your talent." In this lesson, we're going to compute weekly, semi-monthly, and bi-weekly earnings given an annual salary. We're going to compute hourly pay and overtime pay given hourly rate, and we're going to compute annual salaries based on annual percentage increase. All to answer the question, what do you need to know to make sure each paycheck is correct? Before we jump into it, let's make sure we're ready for this lesson by doing warm-up number 2. Solve each literal equation for x. Up first is r times x is equal to t. This means dividing both sides by r, giving us that x is equal to t divided by r. Next is 1.5x equals r plus t. We can divide both sides by 1.5, giving us x is r plus t divided by 1.5. Then we have 1.5 times the sum of x and r is equal to 9. The first thing we can do is divide both sides by 1.5, freeing up those parentheses. That's going to give us x plus r is equal to 6. Then we can move the r to the other side by subtraction, giving us x is 6 minus r. Now let's take a look at a problem that you will be able to do by the end of this lesson. Michaela signed a 5-year contract for a new job. Her starting salary was $67,000 per year, and an annual salary increase of 3% each year of the corporate review of her work deems it satisfactory. What is her salary in 5 years to the nearest dollar? This is an example of a geometric series with the first term being 67,000 and a common ratio of 1.03. See, her rate of increase is 1.03, so we can say that a sub n would be equal to a sub 1 times 1.03 to the n minus 1 power. Simply speaking, we're going to wind up with her 5th year being 67,000 times 1.03 to the 4th power. That's because she will have earned 4 pay raises. By using a calculator, we're going to get her 5th year salary being $75,409. Everybody looks forward to payday. Most high school students who work are paid on a weekly basis, which means they receive a paycheck every week they work. Their paychecks usually fall on the same day each week. However, not all jobs have a pay period of 1 week. There are 52 weeks in a year. Some employees receive a paycheck every 2 weeks. They receive 26 paychecks per year. These people are paid bi-weekly. Their paydays fall on the same day of the week every other week. Businesses that distribute paychecks bi-weekly save time, money, and paperwork compared to businesses that pay their employees weekly. Some businesses pay their employees twice a month or semi-monthly. There are 12 months in a year, so these employees receive 24 paychecks per year. The paychecks are distributed on the same dates each month. For example, an employer may choose to pay employees on the 1st and 15th of each month. Note that bi-weekly and semi-monthly pay schedules are slightly different. Although it is not common, some businesses pay their employees monthly. These employees receive 12 paychecks per year. They are usually paid on the same date of each month, for example, the 15th. Most employers offer their employees direct deposit. This means their paycheck amount are automatically deposited electronically into their bank accounts on payday. Even if an employer has direct deposit, they still receive a paper or digital pay stub explaining tax information for that pay period. Most part-time jobs that students hold pay a set amount for each hour they work, called an hourly rate. Many people in full-time jobs are also paid an hourly rate. Certain jobs require an employee to work only a specific number of hours per week. These are the employee's regular hours. Employees sometimes work more hours than their regular hours. When these extra hours are more than a full-time number of hours, they are called overtime hours. The overtime hourly rate is usually greater than the hourly rate of regular hours. Often, the overtime rate is 1.5 times the regular hourly rate, called time and a half overtime. Sometimes the overtime rate is 2 times the hourly rate, called double time pay. Your total pay, which is the sum of your hourly rate pay and your overtime pay, is your gross pay. There are federal and state laws on the lowest hourly rate that can be paid to an employee in the United States. This rate is called the minimum wage. Other laws involve the number of hours employees can work and conditions in the workplace. It is important to have a clear understanding of your rights and responsibilities as an employee. Here we're going to learn how to make computations involving different pay periods and hourly rates. When you take a job, be sure to ask for everything you need to know regarding your paycheck. Now let's compute some weekly, semi-monthly, and bi-weekly earnings given a salary. Christina is paid bi-weekly. Her annual salary is $37,000. What is her bi-weekly salary rounded to the nearest cent? It's important to remember that bi-weekly means every 2 weeks. So with 52 weeks in a year, that means there's 26 paychecks. So we can take her $37,000 salary, divide it by 26, and we'll get $1,423.08. Let's check our understanding of this. Carlos earns X dollars bi-weekly. Express his annual salary algebraically. Well, we know he's going to get X dollars, and we know there are 26 pay periods in that year because it's every other week, being 52 weeks in a year, so we get 26X as our algebraic expression. Manny is paid semi-monthly. His semi-monthly salary is $1,239. What is his annual salary? So we need to remember that Manny is going to receive 24 checks, and that's because we're looking at semi-monthly. So we can take 1,239 and multiply that by 24 to get $29,736. Let's check our understanding. Alex is paid semi-monthly. His annual salary is Y dollars. Express his semi-monthly salary algebraically. The first thing to remember is semi-monthly means there are 24 paychecks in a year. Since we know his annual salary is Y dollars, if we divide that by 24, we'll find out what one of those paychecks is. Maureen is a manager at a local Chicken King restaurant. Her regular hourly wage is $15.70. If she regularly works 40 hours per week, what is her regular weekly pay? Well, $15.70 for every hour earned, and 40 hours having been worked means $628 a week. Let's check our understanding of this. Roger regularly works H hours per week at a rate of D dollars per hour. Express his annual salary algebraically. Well, we know that each week he's going to work H hours and earn D dollars for every single one of those hours, giving $1 per hour. If he worked all 52 weeks at the same amount of work, then this is what we would wind up with for our expression. If Maureen from example 3 worked overtime, she receives an hourly rate of 1.5 times her regular rate. What is Maureen's hourly overtime rate? So let's remember that Maureen earns $15.70 per hour. If we wanted to know her overtime rate at 1.5 times that, then we just multiply it to get $23.55 for each hour of overtime. If Mary Ann earns Y dollars per hour regularly, express her overtime rate algebraically if she's paid time and a half. Well, Y dollars per hour, and if we multiply that by 1.5, we can find the value of that overtime hour. Now, let's compute hourly pay and overtime pay given the hourly rate. Janice earns $16 an hour. If her regular work hours are 40 hours per week and she receives time and a half overtime, find her total pay for a week in which she works 45 hours. We know that she's going to work 40 hours at $16 per hour. This is going to earn her $640. Now, she worked 45 hours that week, so if we subtract the 40 hours paid at the regular rate, we get 5 hours of overtime. Overtime is paid $16 times 1.5, time and a half. That means $24 per hour. That's going to give us 120 overtime hours. Add that to the $640 that has been earned, and she gets a $760 paycheck for 45 hours work. Let's check our understanding. Ron regularly works 40 hours a week at a rate of X dollars per hour. Last week, he worked Y overtime hours at time and a half. Express his total weekly salary algebraically. So we know that the first 40 hours are going to be paid at his X rate. We also know he's going to be paid an additional time and a half of that X rate for Y hours of overtime. Samantha, a waitress, worked 40 regular hours last week, plus 7 overtime hours at time and a half. Her gross pay was $611.05. What is her hourly rate? So we're going to let X represent the hourly rate, and her regular pay being 40X. Her overtime rate is 1.5X. Her overtime pay is 7 times 1.5X. So what we're getting is her regular pay of 40X and 7 hours at 1.5X. This gives a total paycheck of $611.05. So 7 times 1.5 would be 10.5, and that is an X. We combine these like terms to get 50.5X is equal to $611.05. Divide both sides by 50.5 to get X is $12.10 per hour. Let's check our understanding of this with Julian, who worked 40 regular hours last week, plus 2 overtime hours at double time. Her gross pay was $484. What's her hourly rate? Once again, we do know that we're going to have 40X of her regular hours, plus 2 hours of overtime at 2 times X to get 484. Now 2 times 2 would be 4, and that is an X, meaning we have 44X is equal to 484. This means that when we divide both sides by 44, we get $11 an hour. Last week, Saul worked R regular hours and T overtime hours at a time and a half rate. He earned $700. If X represents his hourly rate, express X in terms of R and T. So regular gross pay is R times X, and his overtime pay is T times 1.5X. So when we understand that we have the regular pay plus the overtime pay, and this is going to equal the total pay. So we have Rx plus 1.5 Tx is equal to 700. We can factor out the X that they have in common, giving us X times the sum of R and 1.5 T. This is equal to 700. So X would be equal to 700 divided by R plus 1.5 T. Let's check our understanding of this. Jonathan worked H hours at an hourly rate of R dollars. He also worked W hours at an overtime rate of double time. Express his total pay for a week algebraically. Well, we know starting out his regular time was H times R. We know that 2 times the rate is his overtime and that W hours were worked in overtime. Let's extend our understanding of this a little bit farther. Giovanna gets paid a regular pay rate of R dollars for 40 hours worked. She is paid at time and a half for up to 16 overtime hours worked and double time for overtime worked greater than 16 hours. Write a piecewise function P of Z for Joanne's pay when she worked Z hours. So the first thing is we know we're dealing with P of Z, and we're going to have 3 different conditions. One is that she's going to get paid 40 hours at the rate she works at, and this is when Z is less than or equal to 40 hours that she worked. We also know that she would get her regular 40 hours and an additional 1.5 times her rate for every hour Z that was over 40. This is going to occur when Z is greater than 40 and less than 56. Now, in the case of when she works more than 16 hours of overtime, she gets her 40 hours at her regular rate. She also gets 1.5 times her rate for every hour over 40, and she receives 2 times her rate for every hour over 56. This is going to occur when Z is greater than 56 hours worked. Now, let's compute annual salaries based on an annual percentage increase. Michaela signed a 5-year contract for a new job. Her starting salary was $67,000 per year, and an annual salary increase of 3% each year of the corporate review of her work deems it satisfactory. What is her salary in 5 years to the nearest dollar? This is an example of a geometric series with the first term being 67,000 and a common ratio of 1.03. See, her rate of increase is 1.03, so we can say that A sub n would be equal to A sub 1 times 1.03 to the n minus 1 power. Simply speaking, we're going to wind up with her 5th year being 67,000 times 1.03 to the 4th power. That's because she will have earned 4 pay raises. By using a calculator, we're going to get her 5th year salary being $75,409. Let's check our understanding of this. If Michaela signed a new 3-year contract after her first 5 years with a 4.1% annual increase, what will her new salary be in her 8th year with the company? So the key right here is we know we are at $75,409 at 5 years. We also know that the rate she's going to be getting is 1.041. So A sub n is going to be equal to the first times 1.041 to the n minus 5 power. That's because we're dealing with 5 years was already there and shown in this 75,000. So we can get A sub n is equal to $75,409 times 1.041 to the 8 minus 5 power, which would be 3. So to do this on a TI-30XA, I would put 1.041 y to the x 3 equals times 75409 equals. Now, if we wanted to round this to the nearest dollar, I suppose we could. We would say that A sub n is $85,070.